There are plenty of nameplates that strike a chord of enthusiasm in Japanese car culture. There's the Skyline, Lancer Evolution, Starion. No, I'm joking about the Starion. But there's certainly a lot of cult cars. And to add to that list, you cannot overlook Supra. Supra production began in about 1978. Originally it was actually an offshoot of the Celica. It was the Celica XX, but it became its own car. By the late 1990s though, the sale of sports coupes, especially Japanese sports coupes in that all-important North American market, were on the decline. In fact, by 2002, Toyota decided that actually the Supra wasn't really cutting it in the sales charts anymore, and they actually decided to can it. And so then, for a long time after that, nothing. It took 15 years, or 15 years was sort of spent in this kind of business class doldrums where they appealed to middle management types with thoroughly dependable practical cars, but cars that didn't really have a soul, cars that didn't really sort of make you want to slam the keys down on the table in the bar and announce to the whole room what you were driving. I've got a Camry. Then in the late 2000s, something of a generational shift seemed to happen within Toyota. They produced an impressive wee sports car we know as the 86. The bigger ripple in the pond started to form when rumours surfaced that Toyota were considering making a new version of the mighty Supra. Before long, those rumours were more than rumours, it was a reality. The Supra was back. Even though there's sort of a decade plus long gap between this car and the fourth generation, there's still certain elements of that previous generation Supra in this one now. It's very sort of fluid and sculpted, and lots of slashes and cuts and bulbous bits. The double bubble roof actually harks even further back into Toyota's lineage, back to the 2000 GT, arguably their first ever performance car. But actually, the Supra is quite a unique car in the Toyota lineup. It's not even built by Toyota. It's not even built in Japan. It's built by a company called Magna Steyr, which I think I'm saying right. I've never actually said it out loud before. They're an Austrian company, and think of them as like a third-party car production facility. But that's the big secret, of course. Well, it's not a secret. But underneath this, it's pretty much a BMW. And that's quite a fractious topic for a lot of people. This feels very much like a BMW, especially when you're sitting inside this cabin, because the cabin is laughably BMW, I have to say. Everything, except maybe apart from the steering boss, which has a nice big Toyota badge on it, everything else you see in here is BMW. The iDrive, the gear shift, even the fonts on the infotainment system, it's all BMW. And it might sort of lead you to think, well, it's just a facsimile then. What's the point? What's the point of the Supra? But actually, weirdly enough, the fact that maybe the Z4, that sort of quasi-donor vehicle, is fine, but nothing startlingly good, in my opinion, I think maybe people just sort of respond to this car a bit more than they do the other one. So anyway, enough of the backstory. This is the new Supra, the 2021 Supra. It's slightly upgraded from the original 5th generation car that debuted a couple of years back. This one now has launch control as standard, which is handy for those track day starting grids, and it's also got 35 kilowatts more power. Total power is up to 285 kilowatts. They've done some significant sort of upgrade tweaks to the exhaust manifold and the position of the twin turbochargers to kind of get more power out of the 3-litre straight 6 engine up front. BMW engine, but anyway. 500 newton meters of torque, 0 to 104.1 seconds, and I'm riding along on 19-inch alloys wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport rubber. Oh, of course, one of the most important aspects of the Supra is, yes, all the drive's still going to the rear wheels through this 8-speed automatic transmission. It's the only one you can get. There's no manual anymore anywhere in the world, which is kind of the way things are going anyway. So Kiwis shouldn't feel too hard done by. It might not be engineered completely by Toyota, but that doesn't take away anything from the fun that this car sort of exudes. It's a really enthusiast sort of drive, as you can only imagine. It does live up to the legacy of the nameplate, despite, not being something that has been engineered from the ground up by Toyota. There are compromises, of course. It's tiny in here. I know I'm a big guy. Unfortunately, I look even bigger in this thing. And there's just basically no way to get in or out without looking completely ungraceful. I've had this car for about 3 days now and I still haven't quite mastered it. Add to that, if you're parking on a hill, you may as well just fall out and deal with the consequences later on. It's so low to the ground, you are literally holding on to the tarmac as you sort of exit. This is $100,000, give or take. You think, well, what else is there in the market for that sort of money? The Mustang is a different beast altogether. It's a V8, it's a muscle car. It is a fine sports coupe, of course, but it is very much a different sort of kettle of fish to the Supra, appealing to a very different buyer. In terms of other kind of performance finery, you really do start creeping up towards the likes of your Porsche 911 and Aston Martin and some of those kind of more premium players. And all of a sudden, you can change the 1 out at the start of the RRP for this for a 2 or possibly even a 3. So actually, for bang for buck, if you want a really interesting sports car and something that does capture people's attention and has a nameplate that is proven, then the Supra is a pretty good option. So while the Toyota Supra, this rear-wheel drive sports coupe with a classic silhouette, a long bonnet with a straight 6 285 kilowatt engine delivering all the power you need underneath it, does represent Toyota's renewed enthusiasm for its performance pedigree, there is actually another model that the company's released recently which really exemplifies that as well. More so, it remains a car that's been built ground up by Toyota, and it actually pushes the boundaries in terms of what you might expect this car company to unleash onto the mainstream car market. What you get when Toyota really put their mind to it is this. This is fantastic. This represents something that no one would have anticipated coming out of the Toyota factory. Certainly not since the 1990s anyway. This is the Gazoo Racing Yaris, and it's something pretty special. So this is a Yaris in that it's got a Yaris nameplate on it. It kind of has the same silhouette as a Yaris, but it's extremely different in many ways from what you might expect to see at the supermarket car park. It actually only shares about 4 body panels with the standard Yaris. It's also got a carbon fibre roof. It's only got 3 doors. And it's got one of these weird things, a manual gearbox. You've got to select the gears yourself. How strange. The reason I'm driving this on a badly groomed gravel road is because this is something astounding. A homologation car, if you will. It's actually essentially a rally car. Back in the 1990s, these were pretty common for any, manufacturer competing in the World Rally Championship. Obviously, you had your Subaru WRXs, your Lancer Evolutions. The rules state that the manufacturer has to sell a certain amount of cars that closely resemble what they're racing with. But with fewer and fewer manufacturers actually in the WRC these days, creating a homologation car is a massive financial deal. But then to make something like this, because you want to stay in motorsport, is really admirable. It's just fantastic that you can actually put a car out on the road that does everything that less talented drivers like me would expect of it, and just give you so much joy in doing so. Unlike the eco-minded engine that propels the Yaris hybrid forward, the power plant up the front of this thing is all about performance. It's a 1.6 litre 3-cylinder engine. In fact, it's the world's most powerful 3-cylinder engine. 200 kilowatts, in fact. And this car is also, in the truest sense of the word rally homologation, a 4-wheel drive, which makes it great for roads like this. Okay, so I've gone on and on at length about what a cool car this is. What are its flaws? Are there any? Well, yeah, there are. No car is perfect. And here's one of them here. I can't actually barely see through that B pillar. There's a tiny wee aperture behind the seat there, and it's extremely difficult to see through. Speaking of seeing, the Gazoo Racing Yaris has one of the strangest reversing cameras I've come across in years. The picture clarity is pretty middling for a start, but it also has a strange feature where the world looks like it's falling away at the edges. I guess it's just a byproduct of the curvature of the sheet metal back there that it's fixed into. And of course there's the rear legroom, or lack of. There isn't any legroom really. In fact, there's barely any headroom either, because this car is slightly lower at the back, the roofline being lower than the standard Yaris. This is a hot hatch. What are you doing trying to use it as a family car? Wow. That's a $60,000 rally car. At $60,000, so much fun. So much fun. Manual gearbox, you know, limited torsion diff. Oh, it's just incredible. I really want one. One of the byproducts, of course, of having a 4-wheel drive hot hatch with grip at every corner is that you feel the need to take it off-road. Having done that, and thoroughly coated this car in dust, it's probably about time I go and give it a clean. Oh, I really don't want to give this one back. They're special cars when you get to drive them. Maybe if you had to live with a manual gearbox in the city all the time, it wouldn't be so special. But this car, some of its parts, it's a pretty fantastic wee thing. There's a reason why they're sold out all over the place, and there's a reason why I hope Toyota will keep making them. It's such a great wee thing. And I tell you what, for $60,000, I know it's not play money, is it? But it's still pretty darn good.